So I want to talk about hood alignment issues because I know that it plagues a lot of people, and there's a certain adjustment that I don't think many people know about, and we're going to cover that today. We're also going to go over the basics of this, right? As you can see, this is an aftermarket hood, and what I'm trying to do right now is get this hood lined up so that I can verify that it fits good, make some marks on the hood, and then take it off so that I can get this car ready for paint. What you don't want to do is paint this new hood, put it back on the car, and then be trying to figure out how everything goes, because you're going to scratch something up. All right, you have adjustments right here on this latch. So what that adjustment does is obviously affect how your hood latches. But what you can do down here is adjust these. They're 8mm bolts, and you can adjust this up and down and side to side a little bit. And this particular piece right here is what's going to lock up here on this. So you can move this around if you're having an issue with either your hood having to be slammed down or either the front of your hood kind of sitting up. So adjust these out right here. There's not much adjustment up here. You can adjust this latch some. This is just your safety latch here, but this can be adjusted as well. Sometimes it does help out. All right, so there's your first adjustment that most people are going to make. And then let's move to the back here. These are the adjustments that most people think of when they think of adjusting a hood. These two bolts will allow the hood to move this way and this way a little bit. So if your hood is basically sitting out too far this way, then you can adjust those and slide the hood back a little bit. Also, if it's sitting too close to one side of the fender, you can adjust these both at the same time, loosen them both up, and you can shift your hood either way. All right, so those are probably the adjustments that most everybody is aware of, and they are kind of aggravating. And as you can see here, we have a really tight fit, and that needs to be adjusted. Now, if there's not enough room, and sometimes this happens if your hood is too wide, and for whatever reason you can't get it in between the fenders, at that point you're gonna have to come in, loosen these fender bolts up right here, adjust each fender out. Now that's what I recommend, and you can line these things up evenly by making sure the spacing on each side of the cowl is correct. So in reality, this particular fender over here could be bumped out ever so slightly. So that could be causing some of the problem that we have right here. So it would be a good idea to go ahead and loosen these bolts up and move the fender out a little bit. But there's another adjustment that not a lot of people use right here. So your hinges will cause all sorts of issues. They can cause a little bit of side to side if they're not adjusted right, but the main issue is the up and down on the back of the hood. So let's go ahead and show you what I'm talking about here. So here's the adjustment that I'm talking about back here on your hinges. See how this hood dips down? That is because your hinges are too low. So let's go ahead and adjust that now and see if we can get this back. What you can do is put a crowbar or whatever you've got in here and make your adjustment. Now, pay attention, because as you can see, the hood is moving right now, right? The metal on the latch itself is not moving. So you have to really push down. Now you can push down on each side like this, and you're possibly gonna have to break these things free, by the way. So as you can see, we're starting to get there now. We still need to come up some, but we're definitely getting there. So let's go ahead and see if we can make a little bit more adjustment on that and get this hood up a little higher. And what I'm doing is using the metal right there just to pull up. That should be about as far as this thing's gonna go. Okay, then we'll just use this to pull the other side up. Okay, now as you can see, this is getting better. Now, none of these aftermarket hoods are going to be perfect. Once you get your hinges set up very close, now you can come in, and if you have to, you can shim underneath the hood, in between the hood and the hinge itself. So now what we need to do is go ahead and adjust this and see if we can get this thing even closer. I'm just going to use a piece of wood here to give me some more leverage. Way better. All right, so that is a lot better, guys, than what it was. And now if you needed to fine tune this hood, you literally could put you some small shims under there. So the guy that I got this car from, my buddy John, that's essentially what he was doing. He was leveling everything up with shims. And they sell shims like, I think they're fender shims. You can get them from the auto parts store. And they just slide in and you can tighten it up. So you're gonna have to do some tweaking and some custom stuff with these hoods. That's just the way they are. Most There's very, very few of these hoods that are going to fit perfect. So just know that ahead of time. But yeah, from here, just shim that up and you'll be good to go. One more thing, because I want to show you guys exactly what I'm talking about with this fender here. Okay, so these are not the only bolts that you have on your fender. You got a bolt back here and a bolt down here on the bottom as well. But this will give you some in and out movement, as you can see here. So what you can do is once you loosen these, you can just come in with some type of spacer like this. Whatever you got, that should match up. We'll just call that close. And you can verify. Then you can go ahead and pull these out. It's going to move a little, and the reason why it's going to move is because, like I said, it still has a bolt back here. So if this is not enough adjustment, there's also one back here. So we may go ahead and look at that, because it seems to be a little more gap here than here. And the other bolt I'm talking about is right back here. So let's loosen it up and see if we can adjust it. Loosen this up. So this fender already had some tension in it, because now it is pretty much dead even. But the top of the fender is above the cowling. So let's look at that for a second. So now the top of the fender is higher than the cowling. That's not a big deal here. All you have to do is push down most of the time. Make sure your gaps are right. Push down and then tighten up back here. And that should get you right. That's pretty close right there. All right, so just to go over this again, if you need your fender to move side to side a little bit to give yourself a little more clearance in between your hood, you can loosen these up. And I do recommend you just go ahead and loosen up the one that I showed you behind the door back there. And your fender can move like this some. Tighten everything up, make sure your gaps are right, and you should be good here. As long as this fender matches the other fender as far as the gap between the cowl, that's going to put you pretty close. So that's a good starting point anyway, at least on the back of the fender. There's a lot of work that I have to do here. Everything's just kind of out of alignment. But those are the points that you're going to need to adjust. There's also one bolt at the bottom of your fender. It's right down here on your pinch wheel. That can also help you raise and lower your fender a little bit, but most of the time your adjustments are going to be right up here up top. And I hate to be the one to tell you this, but there's a good chance that you may have to do some grinding, some shaping on these hoods. They're just not perfect. All these cars are a little different. They may have had some front end damage or whatever the case may be, aftermarket parts put on them besides the hoods. But most of your aftermarket hoods are going to need some type of work done to them. So just know that ahead of time when you're going into this type thing. But if you're in my situation to where you have a new hood that's never been, correctly fitted to the car yet, you've got to do that first, because you don't want to be doing any type of work like that after you paint everything. But I'm going to go ahead and wrap this one up. As you can see, I got a ton of work to do to get this hood straightened out before I can start pulling everything apart and getting it ready for paint. Which, by the way, we may start going ahead and doing some jam work and under the hood, stuff like that, possibly this week. All right, I'm going to go ahead and wrap this video up. And as always, thanks for watching.